Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jenny Ragusa, Head of Communications here at Data.World, and I'm so glad you're here. Now, before we dive in, let's quickly spin through some housekeeping. You're probably already familiar with most of this, so I'll go quickly. But first off, this is a pre-recorded broadcast. That means you'll be able to enjoy a presentation that's free from technical difficulties or unexpected interruptions. It also means you'll be able to chat with our speaker throughout the broadcast. Ryan is logged in and eager to hear from you. Just reach out using the Q&A and chat buttons on your screen. Also, this webinar will be available for on-demand replay in about 24 hours. You'll receive an email with the link just in case you miss any of this or want to share with colleagues. We also have some excellent resources available for you to check out in the console below. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Ryan Cush, the Chief Revenue Officer here at Data.World. Together, we'll explore methods that enterprises can use to estimate ROI from the use of data and analytics initiatives and uncover best practices to drive business value with a catalog for metadata and data management. And again, Ryan is here to answer any questions in the Q&A and chat. You may all be muted, but we'd still love to hear from you. Share your own examples, suggestions, questions, commentary, or whatever you'd like to contribute to the conversation. And thank you for joining us today. We're glad to have you and hope you find this next hour interesting and inspiring.
Hello, and welcome to our webinar today on driving and measuring ROI with an enterprise data catalog. My name is Ryan Cush, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Data.World. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, so I'm very happy to be speaking with you about it today. So let's jump right in. The goal for today's webinar, we're really focused on helping you put together the budgetary case for your data catalog initiative. We speak with a lot of companies that understand they need a data catalog. They've heard all of the analyst reports and they know that this is a must-have for companies today to be competitive, but they might need some help putting together a financial case to be able to secure budget, maybe convince a CFO, and that's kind of the focus of today's webinar. So I'm going to walk you through an ROI framework for estimating ROI, looking at both the categories of ROI and then the specific use cases that drive that. We'll look at some real customer examples of clients of ours that have implemented these use cases and realized this ROI. And then I'll leave you with 4 tips for accelerating ROI from your data catalog program. So let's jump right in. I'm going to start by saying that a data catalog program, it's going to increase the efficiency and productivity of your company. It's going to make you more innovative. It's going to help you to reduce risk. But don't think of this as something that is justified purely on a dollars and cents basis. Because honestly, while you can do that, and I'll walk you through some examples of that, at scale, this is bigger than that. If you think about the types of platforms that are used across your entire company, things like your CRM system or your HR system or your data warehouse, these are systems that you don't typically measure ROI. You don't look to measure the dollar value impact of these, but you can't imagine doing business without them. They are the lifeblood of your company. And you should think about a well-adopted, well-rolled out enterprise data catalog along those same lines. You've got people across your entire company, not just your elite data workers, not just your data scientists, for example. You got folks across your company who are making decisions every day. And the question for you is, do you want these folks making decisions based upon intuition? Do you want them making decisions based upon the wrong data, stale data, incomplete or inaccurate data? Or do you want them making decisions based on the right data, high quality data? And this extends into every group, every department, pretty much every profile of user across your company can benefit from having a data catalog platform. And the impact of that really is massive. We've built a detailed calculator for estimating this impact, and it's available on our website. You'll see it here in the resources on the webinar as well. I'm going to be walking you through some of the examples of use cases and calculations that are in this ROI estimation calculator. You can use this on your own, or let me know, and my team and I can help you walk through this. We've often created customized versions of these for specific companies because some elements of it can really depend upon the dynamics of your business. So when we think about how to estimate and measure the ROI from a program like this, really there's three categories that you're going to see impacted from your data catalog. And those are the ones you see in blue there: productivity increase, revenue increase, and risk avoidance. The first two of those are ones that are considered sort of offensive. This is how are you using data to create a competitive advantage and to mobilize improvements within your business. The risk avoidance is one you can think of as being more defensive. You're trying to avoid bad things from happening in the use of your data. Each one of these is then backed up by one or more use cases. And these use cases are specific business uses of your data catalog that will map to one or more of these categories. And today I'm going to talk you through how to do high-level estimations of the categories, as well as more detailed calculations and estimations of the use cases. Let's start with that first one, the first category, which is productivity increase. This is, for most companies, this is the largest and most measurable, accessible benefit from a data catalog program. And really this comes down to increasing the productivity of all of your data workers across your company. We often hear stories of folks, especially business analysts and data scientists, who spend so much of their time trying to find, understand, and manipulate data, and it leaves them with only a small amount of time to actually work with that data and do the job that they're really focused on, which is to create business insights based upon that data. So with the data catalog, you can increase the efficiency of all of those folks, but then extend this to others in the organization. Certainly the data engineers that are involved in creating these data assets, you can increase their productivity as well, and pretty much anyone that accesses data. We'll see some examples of this in the models. You can see a snapshot there at the bottom right of how we look at different roles, estimate productivity increases from the use of the data catalog, and that can help us to estimate an overall business impact in terms of productivity. Our second category is revenue increase. This is one that's very personal and it's very specific to your industry and to your business. You'll see here some quotes from some great analysts and consulting firms and thought leaders on increases in revenue or profitability, and those are great. And this is something that can have a very big impact to your business. But if you want to think about measuring or estimating this, think about how your company makes money. How does data play into that? And how can better, faster use of data accelerate that? One of our advisors has a great analogy of every company has a verb, and that verb is what that company does. So if you're Exxon, you pump gas. If you're Visa, you facilitate credit. If you are an insurance company, you're underwriting risk. So what is your verb? What does your company do? And how can data help you to do that better, more, and faster? And that's going to help you to estimate where you can have a revenue increase impact from your data catalog program and from just a data-driven organization in general. And then the third and last of our top-level categories is risk avoidance. And so this is that defensive topic. And here you're talking about how can a well-curated data catalog with a good governance program help you to prevent lack of compliance to different types of legal regulations or data agreements that you have. How do you avoid data breaches? These are the types of things that are very hard to predict, but can cost a lot of money if you're in violation of these. And so to estimate this, you're going to want to look at examples from your industry or maybe your company specifically where they have encountered these types of violations. What did it cost them? What do you think it could cost you to encounter one of these? And therefore, what's the value of controlling your data better so that you can avoid these? Okay, so we talked about the three categories there in the middle. Now let's talk about the use cases that play into each one of those. We're going to start with an inventory of your company's users. So we spoke earlier about our business decision makers and how those are folks that are making decisions based upon your data. There's a whole set of folks that are empowering those, from data engineers to business analysts, subject matter experts. You're going to want to look across your landscape at all the folks that are going to be touching and using your data catalog, either as a data producer or as a data consumer, estimate how many of these you have, estimate what their fully loaded costs are, and this is going to serve as an important input into the rest of the models that we've built that you'll see here and that you can access on our website. Let's start with a bread and butter use case for a data catalog, which is around analysis projects and streamlining the process of doing analysis projects. So this is something that every company we work with does these in some regularity. And typically before they've implemented a data catalog, these are very manual. They involve a lot of back and forth, a lot of waiting for people to complete steps, and generally don't run very efficiently. The way that we estimate the ROI impact here is we look at, for your company, for a typical analysis project, who are the folks involved and what are the main tasks or steps that they would do for these types of projects? And we break this down by step and by persona, and then we estimate how much time they spend on these today and how much time we think we can save them with a well-adopted, well-curated data catalog. And then that will allow us to then roll into time savings per project. You then multiply that by estimate of how many of these types of projects you do across your organization per year. Factor in the fully loaded cost of these employees, and that will get you to a number that estimates the impact to the organization of streamlining analysis projects. Let's look at a specific example of a client of ours that did this really well. So Aceable is, I believe, the market leader in doing online defensive driving and driver's education. So if you got in a speeding ticket and you had to take defensive driving to get that off your record, hopefully you used Aceable. They do this for tens of millions of users, and they do it very well. Very data-driven organization. One of the key processes that they do is they take a look at data across their platform and the usage of their platform. They look at market data, and they use this to conduct their regular strategic planning process. And the way that this used to work is they would put in a request for data, which mostly lived in their MongoDB instance. They would have to get on the schedule of their engineers, who, like most of our companies, their engineers are very, very busy folks. And so they could be waiting a week or more just to get this data pull from their MongoDB database. They would put that into a Postgres database. The BI team now has access to the Postgres database. They will do further manipulation to get that into an Excel format that then the business decision makers can use that and then do their magic to create the insights to drive their next phase of their strategic planning. This was a very lengthy process. You always had to wait at least a week or two to do this, which doesn't allow you to be very agile or very nimble in adapting to market conditions. After implementing data.world, now they have their data catalog platform with a live real-time connection to their MongoDB instance. And they've got a user interface that their business decision makers can access. So they get access to that live data source. They have access to reusable queries and data pipeline to get the slice of the data they need to do their analysis. And then they can seamlessly connect that into Excel and other tools to provide the reporting and insights that they need to do. Really good example of something that dramatically sped up their operation and allowed them to be much more agile and responsive to their market conditions. Our next use case here is around understanding business terminology. And this is one that everyone faces, no matter how big or how small of a company you are. People tend to have misalignment on the meanings of different terminology in the business and the dashboards and reports that relate to that terminology. And so, we often hear stories of people that spend time in meetings arguing over what's the definition of a specific term, because that plays into a report that's going to lead to a group decision that we're about to make. Here, to estimate the value here in terms of at least the productivity side, is look at all of the folks across your organization that this impacts. Estimate how often they encounter this problem. How often are they needing to understand terminology to interpret for a dashboard or report? How much time does it cost them to reach that understanding today? How much can you cut out of that? And then multiply that throughout on an annualized basis, and you can come to an annualized productivity increase estimate for just this one use case of the data catalog. A really good example of this is one of our technology clients. They're a large global software company. They've got tens of thousands of employees. They're the leader in their space. And they wanted to create this unified inventory of business terminology and dashboards. And so their before state was they would have terms in their business like MQL or contract or customer that people across the business that needed to make these decisions didn't have a clear understanding of what these terms meant. And it especially impacted their new hires. So they would spend hours meeting with other folks in the organization to really understand what these mean. They would spend time in meetings arguing over what the definitions of these meant, and they would reinvent the wheel quite often because they didn't realize that there were dashboards out there that already served the purpose of understanding how these play into their business. After implementing their data catalog platform with data.world, now they have this single, searchable, well-governed source of truth that everybody in the company, they have over 10,000 folks that are using this, can have the same single view of the truth for both the meaning of business terminology and the dashboards that represent those in their business. This next use case is around report generation and automation. So are there reports or analysis work that your organization does that you do on a recurring basis? And are there opportunities to automate that to get more productivity savings? So here you're going to look at what are the reports that are candidates for this, who's involved in those, how much time are they spending, and how much time can we save by automating those? A really good example of this comes from another one of our high-tech companies who had this weekly report that they would run that would feed a module on their website that was the primary lead generator for their business. And so their before state here was that a very complicated and very manual data pipeline that they would use to generate this report. And really there was only one person in the company that truly understood how this worked and could run this report. And so every Sunday night he dreaded having to go through this process and spend most of his Monday generating this so he could update this. And it was a very important part of their website and of their business. Through the use of data.world, they automated all of the connections in the data pipeline there. They automated the data pulls and the creation of the report. I believe they were using Google for their BI, but we do this with Tableau and Power BI as well. So they could have this module auto-generate and stay up to date on their website. And more importantly, if this guy calls in sick or something happens to him, this can keep running in a well-documented way. You're not relying on a single point of failure. The last use case we're going to talk through today is managing third-party data. So this is an area where a lot of our customers, especially our larger customers, spend quite a lot of money purchasing third-party market data. And there's two ways that a data catalog can help them make better financial use of that data. One is you go out and spend all this money for this data, and third-party data can be quite expensive, but they don't have a way to provide visibility to that across their company. So the team that initially purchased the data knows that they own it and they can access and use it, but there are lots of other groups within the company that could make strategic use of that data that don't know that it exists and therefore can't access it. So by putting this into an accessible, searchable, understandable catalog, everyone across the company can find this data and use it. And then secondarily, they will often find that they're purchasing the same data multiple times because they don't realize that they've already purchased it. In fact, I was talking to one of our advisors the other day that works with us on our insurance practice, and he was talking about a report, I believe it was by Deloitte, that said they found this one large company had purchased the same D&B data set something like 14 times. So there's a lot of money that's wasted in duplicate purchases of third-party data. So managing this can be quite valuable and can be a very hard ROI metric to focus on. The customer example I'll use here is a global professional services company. This is another company that's got tens of thousands of employees worldwide, and they really wanted to use data to provide better service in their customer engagements. And the way that they would do this before is their client engagement teams would use an email list. And they would say, hey, does anybody have data about this particular topic? And they would go back and forth over email, and someone would say, well, yeah, I think I've got something that's kind of like that. I don't know if this really necessarily meets your needs. And there was a lot of confusion over who owned the different data sets, how it could be used, what it would cost for them to use this on client engagements. And the result is they spent a bunch of time and effort, wasted. There's a bunch of friction in the process to understand and get access to data. And there was duplication of data purchases and even fines for non-compliant use of data that they had purchased because they didn't have good control over the licensing rights and how they were allowed to use this data. They organize all of this data in their data.world instance. They now have a single portal of all of their enterprise data. It's mostly their third-party data, but there is some of their own data in there as well. They've got immediate self-service access to everybody across the company to be able to search this. Very clear metadata and understanding around ownership, licensing costs, even things like Q&A around how folks are using this data. And so as a result, it's removed a ton of friction from their process, allows them to service their customers much better and much faster and at a lower cost. All right, so most of that discussion, that was really focused on the R part of ROI, the return, the financial benefit you can get. Let's spend a couple of minutes talking about the I in ROI. What's the investment that it takes to unlock all of these benefits through a data catalog program? Really, there's four categories of cost that play into your overall program cost. The first, of course, is the licensing costs of the software platform that you're using. And most companies out there end up purchasing a third-party platform. There's lots of great platforms out there. The key question you're going to want to look at here is, can you start small and grow your costs based on adoption? You shouldn't have to go spend a ton of money and buy seats for the entire company and have this huge financial outlay up front when you know that it's going to take time to drive adoption of your platform. So start small and grow based upon adoption. The second area of cost is around platform maintenance or upgrades. So here you're going to want to look at, does the platform you're looking at, is it fully hosted for you? Are the costs of hosting an infrastructure built into the subscription and licensing costs that you're paying them? Or are there on-prem elements that you're going to need to maintain both from an infrastructure and a personnel standpoint? If you're maintaining servers and infrastructure, if you're having to carry out manual upgrades, you'll find that this can easily creep into six figures or more, and you need to factor that into the investment, cost part of your ROI calculation. The third area is around the implementation of your data catalog platform. Here, whatever vendor you're looking at, ask them if they charge for implementation services. Ask them how much that's going to be, what's included, what's not included. Are they providing ongoing client success services to help you keep your program growing and aligned over the years? And what's that going to cost you? And then lastly, look at the cost of your internal team. So this is one of those problems that is very much not just a technology problem. It's a people and process problem. You're not going to be able to stand up a technology platform, a data catalog, and then sit back and watch it create value. You're going to need program management on this, both from the business and technology side, to support both the initial launch of your data catalog program and the ongoing growth and maintenance of it. So those are the four things the four largest things that factor into the cost of your data catalog program. All right, now let's talk about 4 quick tips for accelerating the ROI from your data catalog program. We all want to get to ROI as fast as possible. Here's how you do that. This is what we've learned over doing this for lots and lots of companies. We're going to start with tip number 1, which is don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to set up this big 6-month, 12-month engagement where you're going to get everything lined up and perfectly set up, and then you're going to roll it out to the organization. Don't do that. Start with individual, real use cases and solve real problems for real business users. And when you're framing those use cases, think about the who, the what, and the why. So let me give you a few examples from actual clients of ours. One of our insurance clients came to us, and one of their initial use cases was they said, hey, our actuarial team, so that's the who, they need a unified view of claims data so they can create better pricing models. Very clear understanding of who, what we're trying to get access to or give them access to, and why that's going to matter to the business. Second example here from one of our technology clients. This is one we referred to earlier. They were very much focused on their new hires and helping them to ramp faster. They said, hey, our new hires need a faster way to understand our company's definitions and dashboards for key business concepts so they can ramp a couple of weeks faster. They want to shave a couple of weeks off of their ramp time. So a very clear picture of who, what, and why that's going to impact the business. And the last example I'll leave you here with is harkening back to our professional services example, is they had a specific project team that needed to access a specific type of data so that they could serve a specific client engagement. So these give us real users and real data to work on to implement your data catalog platform around actual use cases. Now, this is a great lead into the next tip, which is to involve your users right from the start of the program, literally from the kickoff and the initiation of a project. Once you've picked your use cases, involve those end users all the way through the process. Don't fall into the trap of, we see a lot of companies that rely on user proxies. Well, we can't bother the marketing team. They're very busy, but we understand what they're looking for, and so we're going to be able to build the experience exactly as they're going to want it. Don't do that. We've all seen examples of this where, as we see in the cartoon here, we think we know what users want. We go through all this work. We build and launch something. We end up invariably reducing scope, and we think we know where to reduce scope to get it out there faster. And at the end of the day, what the user actually needed was something much simpler. So really emphasize speed over completeness, and then grow it, make it better over time. The third tip, this is one of my favorites. Don't limit your catalog to metadata. So we see this especially with folks that have used some of the legacy data catalog vendors, where a lot of the emphasis at that time was to focus on metadata and to create what a friend of mine, I love this term, he used it the other day, a metadata museum. You would create this beautiful, well-curated view of all of the metadata that you have within your organization, but you can't touch it, you can't access it, you can't use it. It's really just there to look at. Don't make that mistake. The more business example I like to use of this is we often talk about creating an Amazon-like shopping experience or a shopping cart experience for data within your organization. But imagine if Amazon just showed you the products and all the information, and when you click buy, you still had to get in your car and drive down to the local store to pick up the product. Or imagine you were in a library and you looked up, the card catalog, for those of us that remember card catalogs, but you couldn't actually access the book that had the information you were looking for. It's not a very good experience for your data consumers, and it leaves a ton of value on the table. Allowing people to get access to and actually use the data also gives you some really critical insight from a governance standpoint, because now you've got a clear, reportable view of who is using what data, what they're doing with it, how long they're using it. And if you have analysis work you're doing, you can really reuse that analysis work or reuse things like curated data sets. This helps you to avoid what we see as data breadlines, where people say, hey, I found the data I want. They go put in a request, and this overworked data engineering team now has to pull the data, create it, package it up into a one-off data set that only that team gets to use, and they don't benefit from reuse. Extend your catalog to include not just metadata, but also data, and also the analysis work. So you should be able to catalog all of the great, amazing things that your employees are doing with their data, regardless of what systems they're using to do that work. That should all be part of your catalog. It's going to help with your reproducibility. It's going to help with auditability of key reports, and it's going to help prevent them from reinventing the wheel. The last tip I will leave you with here is to adopt an agile data governance process. Any data management program needs some element, some level of governance as part of that program. And the traditional model that's often used with some of the legacy approaches is a very top-down, very command and control model where you kind of go through a head of data governance, you go through this governance council layer, and you're really focusing on defining rules, defining workflows, making sure that you have all of the controls, workflows, rules, and documentation in place before anybody can even request working with data. That model a lot of the companies we work with came to us after spending anywhere from 1 year to 3 years implementing a model like this. And what they find at the end of it is they don't actually get usage or adoption. This is, they've done a lot of work, but they end up with basically shelfware with a legacy platform. And the approach that we advocate for, and one that is kind of the winner in the market, is the Agile data governance approach. So in this approach, this is not a free-for-all. You're not just opening up your data to anyone to use. You still have governance, but you're focusing on putting basic guardrails in place, removing friction, creating an iterative, low-friction process for data producers and consumers to work together on real, actual business problems. You're capturing and curating some of the knowledge as they go along, and then opening that, making that accessible for others to use. Much faster time to value, much faster adoption and velocity of data and insights in your company, and you can still do this by maintaining this, all of the controls that you need to make sure you're doing things according to the processes you need to have into place. If you're interested in going deeper on this, we've got a great white paper and a great webinar that you'll see linked to in our website and in the resources here on the webinar. All right, so to summarize, start with real individual use cases. Don't try to boil the ocean when rolling out your data catalog. Involve the users right from the start. Don't limit your catalog to metadata. Make sure you're including both data and analysis in your catalog program, and adopt an agile data governance process. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been useful. There are lots more resources available to you in the webinar panel here, as well as on our website. I wish you the best in your data catalog journey. My team and I stand by ready to help you if there's anything that we can do to help you as you plan this out or build the business case for your data catalog program. And please feel free to reach out if there's anything we can do. Be well, stay safe. Thanks for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.